Welcome to the deep dive. You sent over a whole stack of sources on what might be, well, a pretty massive domestic energy breakthrough. We've gone through it all for you. Today we're looking at this thing called HONC Gas. It's being billed as the world's first on-demand instant green hydrogen fuel, developed right here in India. Now, these are huge claims. We're talking energy independence, maybe completely changing how much consumers pay.
Yeah, and the context is really important here. This isn't just some lab experiment, you know? It's being framed as something that could seriously boost India's economy. The idea is, if this pans out, it could help push India from, what, fourth largest economy globally, maybe firmly into third place. So the ambition is, while it's huge.
Okay, let's try and unpack this then. We've got what sounds like revolutionary tech, a lot of government attention, and economic numbers that honestly sound a bit wild. So our mission here is to figure out, okay, how does this instant hydrogen thing supposedly work? How serious is the government about it? And crucially, what would the cost really look like for an average person? Right, let's start with the tech itself. The basic idea behind HONC Gas, which seems to be their brand name for the system, is pretty simple on the surface. Make fuel from water instantly when you need it. And they're saying it scales up from like a unit for your kitchen stove all the way to big power plants.
What's really interesting, or maybe the core claim, is how it's different from just standard electrolysis. You know, electrolysis usually takes a lot of energy. But they're saying they have some kind of proprietary catalyst, something inside the unit that dramatically cuts down the electricity needed to split the water and get the hydrogen out. That efficiency boost is supposed to be the key, the secret sauce that makes the whole thing economically viable, or so they claim.
And they're really clear about where they are in the process. They keep saying the R&D is done, finished. They're not looking for startup cash. They say they're ready to go, ready for distribution, just waiting on the government approvals. But hang on a second. Listeners, especially in India, you've probably heard stories like this before, right? It makes you think of, well, the whole herbal petrol thing with Ramar Pillai years back. That makes people understandably skeptical.
Exactly.
We saw those kinds of miracle fuel claims just fall apart because the science wasn't actually proven.
Right, and that history, that skepticism is precisely why the company's claims and the government's validation process are so incredibly important now. The company's making a point of saying this is purely scientific. They claim they've proved it works before they even took it to the government. So for us trying to analyze this, the big question becomes, what standards did the government use to check this claim? Because it's a pretty disruptive one.
Yeah, that validation is key, which brings us right into the whole policy side of things. So assuming the science holds up, the next big step is policy and getting the official okay. And this is where the central government seems heavily involved. You mentioned the hydrogen mission run by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, the MNRE.
Yeah, and the government isn't just watching from the sidelines. They're actively pushing this. They've set up a whole specialized wing, a department, just for the hydrogen mission that signals, you know, a serious long-term strategic bet on hydrogen. And the money involved, it's significant. 19,000 crore rupees allocated under the PM's scheme.
Wow, 19,000 crore, that's a lot.
It is, and it's not just for research grants. That money is meant to build the entire hydrogen ecosystem. So funding R&D, yes, but also setting up pilot projects, helping build the factories needed to make these things, and maybe even subsidies to get people to buy them initially, to kickstart the market.
Right.
The bigger goal seems to be national energy self-reliance, cutting down those massive fuel import bills.
Okay, and here's a specific point about HONC Gas that really stood out in the sources. It wasn't like they just sent in a proposal that sat in a pile somewhere. The government's energy department actually picked this company's findings. They invited them to showcase it at a big expo that's happening right now. So the government is actively pointing to this specific technology as part of its national hydrogen plan.
That selection is definitely a strong signal, a vote of confidence, you could say, but it also shines a light back on that policy hurdle we talked about. Hydrogen as a fuel, especially for homes, it's still very new. Globally, I mean. Because it's so new, there aren't really standard rules yet. No universal safety protocols, no agreed-upon pricing standards, nothing like that.
Right.
So the government's job now is kind of bureaucratic, but it's essential. They have to finalize all those policies, testing standards, licensing procedures. That has to happen before this, or any similar tech can actually be launched commercially.
Okay, so the tech's apparently ready. The government seems keen and is even promoting it. But everyone's waiting for the official rule book. Which leads us to the question probably everyone listening is asking. The money. When can I get this, and what's it actually going to cost me? The company sounds optimistic, hoping for approval soon. Maybe available to the public by January, they said, at the latest.
Yeah, and it's worth clarifying, they seem to have a whole product line. For home users, the main thing is this compact unit, a domestic generator. It apparently connects to the stove you already have. They also talk about bigger units, even power plant scale, but let's stick with the home version for now.
Okay, let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets potentially game-changing. First, the upfront cost. Buying the unit itself, the estimate is around 50,000 euro. Maybe even a bit less, they suggested. That's the one-time cost to get started.
50,000 rupees. Okay.
Now, the running cost. This is the number that really jumps out and, frankly, needs a close look. The company claims to power 2 burners on your existing stove for a whole month. The electricity needed to split the water costs less than 100.
Under 100 rupees.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the figure where we really need to pause and think critically if that's accurate. You're talking about cutting monthly fuel bills by maybe 10 times, 15 times.
Right. A normal LPG cylinder is, what, 1,000 to 1,500 a month for a family?
Easily.
Sometimes more.
So getting that down under 100, it sounds revolutionary, almost unbelievable.
It does, which is why we have to be a bit skeptical, or at least ask more questions.
Like, are there hidden costs? Does that sub 100 figure account for replacing parts? What about maintaining that special catalyst? Does it wear out? How much does that cost?
Exactly. Or even the electricity rate they use for that calculation. Is it based on today's subsidized rates? Will those change?
These are crucial questions. The sources we looked at don't really detail the long-term maintenance or the catalyst replacement cost. We have to assume, or maybe hope, that the government's regulatory process will dig into these things. Long-term costs, safety standards, especially if you're generating hydrogen right in the kitchen. So that company claim seems based purely on the marginal electricity cost, assuming everything works perfectly forever. The real economic picture for a consumer depends on getting clear answers on those long-term factors. And, of course, the final price the government sets.
Absolutely. The potential savings look amazing on paper, but those other costs, the unknowns, they need to be clarified by the regulators before anyone can make a real decision. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. Where do things stand? It's a weird situation, really. You've got R&D supposedly finished, a company saying it's ready to sell, huge government backing that 19,000 crore mission, and even specific promotion of this tech. And the promised economics, they're potentially transformative. Under 50K up front, less than 100 euros a month to run.
But the timeline for actually getting it, that depends entirely on the government finishing the paperwork. The licensing, the price setting. They're basically trying to write the rules for a brand new type of technology, not just for India, but one that's new globally. So until those standards are set covering safety, maintenance, the whole package, this product, even if it's ready, has to wait. It's stuck in a holding pattern.
Right. So given that hydrogen tech is new everywhere, and India is putting serious money into shaping its energy future, while also pushing a homegrown tech that claims these incredible 90% plus cost savings for consumers, this feels like it's about more than just cheaper cooking gas. Here's a final thought to leave you with. What if a domestic innovation, maybe born out of India's specific energy needs, doesn't just save its own citizens a ton of money? What if it moves fast enough and works well enough to actually help set the global standards, the technical rules, the business models for this whole new hydrogen energy economy? Now, that would be the real prize India seems to be chasing here. Something definitely worth keeping a very close eye on.